It's been a day of reflection and mourning around the world on this, the 10th anniversary of the September 11th attacks. And perhaps nowhere have the memories been more poignant than in New York and Washington, D.C. Our Chris Gailus joining us live once again tonight near Ground Zero. Chris.
That's right, Robin. It's been a very emotional day here in New York City. Also one filled, though, with hope and optimism about the future. Thousands of people, families of 9/11 victims, arriving early this morning for the 10-year anniversary ceremony. Security has been very tight for most of the day, with sweeps beginning last night, and very early this morning, police checkpoints were set up, spreading out for blocks around Ground Zero. With that specific credible threat hanging over the event, hundreds of officers hit the streets around the World Trade Center, directing pedestrian traffic, checking bags and IDs, taking no chances on this anniversary. Some of those vehicle barriers have since been removed, and it is getting easier to walk around the World Trade Center site right now. Around the world, people are remembering 9/11. Ceremonies here in New York, Washington, and Shanksville especially poignant. The pain and horror of that attack will never be forgotten, but there's also a sense of hope and of a new beginning here at the World Trade Center site. Our Andrew has more on today's ceremonies.
In New York, there were ringing of bells and moments of silence, a touching tribute to remember the 9/11 attacks that shook America 10 years ago. Thousands gathering to honor the hundreds of lives lost.
Tim and your nieces, Emily and Avery, love you.
And my father, Gerard Severance Nevins, a hero, but more importantly, a dad, the best dad I could ever have. We miss you.
A somber anniversary, but a gathering filled with hope as an official memorial was unveiled at Ground Zero to honor the dead, including 24 Canadians.
Like a double-edged sword, you feel very proud, and at the same time, you're hurting.
Two large reflecting pools set in the footprints of where the Twin Towers once stood, the names of each victim engraved in stone along their borders.
It hurts. I'm not supposed to see my son's name in stone. He should be looking at mine.
You can actually touch the name and feel that person.
U.S. President Barack Obama was joined by former President George Bush, each providing comforting words to victims' families.
God is our refuge and strength, a very present help in trouble.
Obama later receiving a warm reception at a memorial in Shanksville, Pennsylvania, laying a wreath at the site where one of 4 hijacked airliners crashed. The president also paying his respects at the Pentagon, where a new memorial was unveiled, a bench and small reflecting pool for each person who died here. Prime Minister Stephen Harper also attended services in New York, addressing a ceremony for British victims.
I offer my respect and condolences and my hope that you find on this day, at this place, and in this ceremony, some measure of comfort.
In Canada, there were several events marking September 11th. In Ottawa, an open-air concert of hope and remembrance began at precisely 8:46 a.m., the moment the first plane hit the first World Trade Center tower. Several hundred were in attendance, including Jean Chrétien, who was Prime Minister when the attacks happened. And further east, in Gander, Newfoundland, where 10 years ago more than 6,000 air travelers were stranded in this town on 9/11 after their planes were diverted, today returning to show their gratitude.
You affirmed with grace and with compassion and with good humor our faith in the goodness of people.
As well, 2 pieces of World Trade Center steel were unveiled in Gander, where they'll be displayed in town, a reminder of lives lost, but also the strength and resilience of the human spirit.
In BC today, hundreds of first responders gathered in Richmond for a memorial ride to the Peace Arch border crossing to honor and remember all of the lives lost 10 years ago. Joining them this year for the 10th anniversary, New York firefighters, police, and Port Authority police, all expressing their gratitude for the years of support and compassion. Here's Jennifer Palma.
A solo piper announces the beginning of a memorial ride marking the 10th anniversary of the September 11th attacks. Hundreds of motorcyclists and emergency personnel riding from the River Rock Casino in Richmond to the Peace Arch border crossing.
Like most people on that specific day in 2001, it struck a chord right across the world.
A somber service at the Peace Arch remembered the fallen of 9/11. And standing alongside Canadian emergency personnel were 4 New York emergency workers who were invited to take part.
I don't think I'll need 2 minutes to say thank you very much for this amazing show of support, for being honored by you guys up here in British Columbia.
One by one, each of the 4 New York emergency personnel told their stories of how September 11th changed their lives.
3 years later, I caught bad news myself. I was told I had stage 4 lung cancer, and I was given 2 weeks to live. But stubborn person I am, stubborn I was that day, didn't listen to nobody down there to get off the pile, to get out of there, you know.
Things happened in my life, things changed dramatically. I went from married with 2 kids to being divorced.
At the Sumas border crossing, another memorial, where Abbotsford and Mission firefighters, police officers and paramedics marched across the line to stand in solidarity with emergency workers in Sumas, Washington.
We're a big family, and it impacted everybody that is involved in the services, and something will never be forgotten.
September 11th was, I think, just a huge day for all of us. In BC, you know, I guess I feel a little isolated. And it's nice to kind of come down and actually see the people that were in New York that day, and it really brings it home.
Back at the Peace Arch crossing, a chopper did a flyby commemorating the moment the first tower went down, leaving those on the front lines to reflect and remember the impact of September 11th.
And I pray that you would extend that same healing and peace to each and every person here this very day.
And an expression of appreciation unveiled at Vancouver International Airport as well today, honoring YVR's efforts during the chaos of 9/11. The U.S. Consul General presenting a plaque to YVR's CEO, thanking British Columbians who not only accepted 34 planes that were diverted from the U.S., but also opened up their homes to up to 800 stranded passengers. Now, back here in New York, the centerpiece of the redevelopment of the World Trade Center site is the new National 9/11 Memorial right behind me, taking up essentially half of this hallowed ground. It opens to the public tomorrow, and when it does, it will transform this site immediately, not just physically, but spiritually as well. And we had a chance to sit down with the man who designed it to get his thoughts on opening day. Tucked below this towering vision of the New York skyline, an oasis created in defiance of what happened on 9/11.
I think what inspired me was being here in New York and seeing how this city came together in the wake of that attack.
It's taken 10 years, but today Michael Arad can look over his masterpiece confident he got it right.
And I spent close to a year in, my free time sketching and drawing and building. And eventually I constructed a small sculpture, a small fountain that had the surface of the water torn open by these 2 voids.
Arad's design beat out 5,200 others, the only one that defied a competition requirement from the developer that the plaza be sunken 30 feet below grade. He felt it had to be at street level, easily accessible to anyone walking by.
This should be a place that brings us together. That's what I saw in Washington Square and Union Square and public sites around the city that allowed us to come together, not just physically, but to come together to support one another, to offer kindness and compassion to a stranger, and in turn be offered that compassion too.
It's a design and engineering marvel. Among the largest man-made waterfalls in the world, granite walls drop 9 meters into reflecting pools below. The water pumped at 120,000 liters an hour. Around the pools, etched in bronze, the names of the nearly 3,000 people who died that day. The plaza is actually a green roof over the massive memorial museum still under construction below. It houses an intricate irrigation system for the 400 swamp white oak trees, each chosen for its straight trunk and consistent shape.
at the end of the day, it's not about the trees or the lawn or the granite paving or the pools or the bronze panels. It is about the visitors and that inner dialogue that people will have on the site. It is about encouraging contemplation. It is about creating, you know, the architectural equivalent of a moment of silence, a clearing in the city, but also a clearing where the tower stood. You can only stand at the edge of that site. You can never walk into it. That area, that is always beyond our reach.
And many of the names on the memorial belong to the hundreds of first responders who lost their lives in 2001. 343 firefighters, 23 New York City police officers, and 37 Port Authority police officers. And many more have succumbed to 9/11 related illness since then. But the bond between those who put their lives on the line is strong, and it is helping survivors heal.
Michael J. Shaggy, Engine Company 74.
They're the families of the forgotten heroes, firefighters who've died since the attack of 9/11 related illness. Valerie lost her husband to cancer 2 years ago.
For them to acknowledge the fact that he belongs on the wall and is part of the people that are dying from 9/11, and he's not the only one. There's so many of them and still happening, that they deserve every recognition that they can get.
A modest memorial unveiled this week helps loved ones heal, sharing their grief with others in the firefighting community who understand this special sacrifice.
These people lingered for years, suffering, and this will provide some comfort to their families and their extended family, which is the firehouse.
Memorials for fallen firefighters and other first responders are everywhere. Down in the subway, District 4 police keep memories of 2 transit cops alive.
I personally knew Ray Suarez, and that was him. You know, Ray, stop going in. No, he's going to go back in.
Ray and his partner Mark Ellis responded immediately to the World Trade Center towers, helping many people to safety. But they were caught when the towers came down. Liaison officers were immediately dispatched to their families. Officer Mike Leone was assigned to look after Ellis's grieving parents.
First thing was to calm them down when we got there. We still didn't know what was going on. We were joking around that, you know, there's a lot of people trapped in the basement. He's probably playing cards like we used to, and, you know, and then, you know, as the time goes on, you know, we kind of realized that, you know, most of these people aren't coming back.
To help the healing, many Canadian police and firefighters attended funerals here. Generosity that will never be forgotten.
You know, whether they're from Vancouver, whether they're from California, no matter where they come, and there's that love and that caring, and it makes a difference.
And nothing demonstrates the connection between New York and Vancouver firefighters better than a never-before-seen artifact that was pulled from the rubble of the World Trade Center in the days immediately after 9/11. The president of Vancouver Firefighters Union Local 18 received it in the mail just a few weeks after the attack. It is considered a sacred reminder of the friendship between these 2 organizations, and on the 10th anniversary, they are only now willing to share it with the public.
About 10 years ago, a T-shirt was sent to the union office, and I opened it up, and it was from New York, and it was a T-shirt that was ripped, torn. It had holes in it. It was in tatters. And there was an accompanying letter that said that it was found in the rubble of Ground Zero. And we believe, as the New York firefighters do, that it was being worn by one of the firefighters who perished, and he was a buddy with a Vancouver firefighter, so we'd swap T-shirts. And that T-shirt's up at the union office, and we've never figured out what really to do with it.
We've struggled for these 10 years on what to do, where to display it, what we display. I mean, it's a one of a kind. It'll never, ever happen again. And for somebody to take the time to send it to us, and it was a firefighter out of New York, for him to take that time, knowing what it meant to us, and not keep it for himself. He could have kept it in New York, but realized that the attachment that we have and sent it to us. We've never opened the bag. We've kept it sealed. That's just the way it came. And I mean, you can You can see it's got the dust.
Has the dust.
It's got the original dust. And that's, again, the struggle with once you open that up, you lose something to it.
That's pretty cool.
It was, and to receive that, it just was, again, it just rekindled all the memories.
In the letter, it states that also like to thank all of the members in Local 18 for their support, morally as well as physically. I have witnessed many members of the Vancouver Fire Department at our fallen brothers' funeral and memorial services, as well as the World Trade Center. The FDNY is very appreciative that your members sacrificed so much to be with us. I hope at some future time we will be there for you if the need arises. And fraternally, Captain John L. Sullivan.
What does that mean to you?
That's a bond of a brotherhood that will never be broken. That we were able to support them, and now they want to support us when we have a time of need. And that is something that most people can't understand, but we do. And we'll support all of our sisters and brothers to the end.
A haunting and powerful reminder of that friendship. And hopefully it encourages some dialogue and a resolution to the questions about how to properly acknowledge the meaning of the shirt and put it on display somewhere. You know, there are so many compelling stories connected to 9/11, an event that changed the world we live in. Many of us remember exactly where we were when we heard or saw what happened. I had been living in Dallas at the time, working for the ABC affiliate there, when I witnessed, along with everybody else in the newsroom, what was happening. And it was stunning, and we are very curious to hear your stories. So we want you to log on to our Facebook page and tell us where you were when you found out or saw what was happening. Robin, the Day of Remembrance wrapping up in New York City tonight with something that's become a bit of a comfort to New Yorkers at around this time, especially those who don't live in Manhattan, because they can view it from across the river or from uptown. Twin beams of light, the tribute of light, representing the fallen towers streaming up into the sky. It's a haunting image this evening with low clouds, a lot of moisture in the air, but this may be the last year for it. It's run by an art society that no longer has the funding for it, and this may be the last year that they see it here in Lower Manhattan. But with the opening of the National 9/11 Memorial as a real touchstone and a physical representation of the loss, I think a lot of people are going to be able to see for themselves that physical representation of loss and be down here and enjoy it and the contemplation that comes with it. Robin, back to you.
Chris Gailus live for us in Manhattan tonight. Chris, thank you so much for that. We will check in again with you at the end of the show. Appreciate it. All right, we're taking you back now live to Lower Manhattan in New York. A very emotional day, a very emotional couple of days as the 10th anniversary of 9/11. And our Chris Gailus has done such a tremendous job of allowing us to get an understanding for what it's been like there. And Chris, I know you'll be one of the first to see the site in person tomorrow.
That's right, Robin. It opens to the public tomorrow, and just a couple of weeks before we were planning to come down here, I booked a pass. So we have a time at 3 o'clock. We'll be there and be able to experience it firsthand instead of from across the road, which we have been. But it will be beautiful. It's stunning and striking from this far away. I'm sure it'll be great tomorrow. Thanks a lot, and what an amazing finish to the Hebert story.
Thanks very much for that. Chris Gailus in Manhattan for us tonight. Thanks for watching, everyone. Good night.
Hello, darkness, my old friend.